22 часа 28 минут. Масса...
We choose to go to the moon. We choose to go to the moon.
One small step for man, one giant leap for mankind. Dragon deploy verified.
Welcome to Spacevidcast 5.10 for Saturday, July 23rd, 2012. My name is Benjamin Higginbotham. With me, as always, is the beautiful, lovely, wonderful, and extremely talented Carrie Ann Higginbotham. And she would have to say that science is a real thing. And
I'm only talented due to science.
Due to science.
Due to science.
We'll explain that in After Dark for those of you who are
Please
wondering
join
what the
us for
heck that's
that.
all about. So let's get started with the show today. I think the big news is China, but it's such big news that it is the main topic for the show, so we're going to do that after the first commercial break. So we're actually going to put off the China launch until after the first break if you're watching on YouTube. So other than China, here are some other things that have happened recently. The National Reconnaissance Office has launched L-38. This happened on June 20th. And ULA, United Launch Alliance, made a neat little music video with royalty-free music.
I appreciate that they do this.
Sure, so I cut off the beginning part because I just couldn't do it.
Yeah.
But here's the launch itself.
National Reconnaissance Office payload L-38 is ready to embark on a national security mission for the United States.
Status check.
Go Atlas.
Go Centaur.
And the RD-180 engine roars to life. And liftoff! The United Launch Alliance Atlas V rocket carrying the NRO L-38 payload for the National Reconnaissance Office.
And as Trebles said, look at those Russian engines. And we were going, if you follow the wiki, we were going to do this story out of order. But I'll do it next, so just because it makes sense, which is the Delta IV rocket. The United Launch Alliance is working on the new RS-68A engine, and this is going to replace the RS-68. There's the RS-68A, the RS-68, the RS-68A, and the RS-68B, which was originally designed for Constellation.
Okay.
So they're trying to kind of do this really. Oh, I think I have a graphic for this.
Awesome.
Here you go. I don't have a picture, but you can read more about it at that URL right there. The basic concept is they've got all these different engines for their Delta IVs and whatnot.
Right.
They're going to unify it all into the RS-68A.
Okay.
And that's going to kind of be the one engine to rule them all.
Okay.
So rather than having to build all of these different engines for everything.
Wait, do they already have an A and they're going to combine all of the designs into A, or they're only going to use A across the board now?
Well, it's definitely going to be A across all the different Delta IVs.
Okay.
So I don't know that it's going to, you can throw it into any other Delta class rockets, but there's the Delta IV, the Delta IV Heavy, the bunch of different configurations of Delta IV.
Sorry, just want to make sure.
So the A is going to go into all of the Delta IVs.
Right.
And that's a first stage engine. So that would be, just a unique way to stay competitive. Right? It's one of those things where we've got these private companies coming on the scene, not just SpaceX, we've got Orbital, we've got Blue Origin, so forth and so on. And all of these companies are doing things in a really inexpensive way, and so the kind of the older, more established companies have to continue to compete. And one way they can compete is by optimizing their chain, and this is one really good way to optimize it, is to have the same engine for basically everything.
Right.
So that's what they're working on. So there you go.
It's like how IKEA only uses one wrench. Thank you, USKO. That's
Yeah.
Very good way of putting that.
Yeah, that's a really good.
Yeah.
And actually, it's a very similar thing to what SpaceX does, right? The Merlin engine is what drives it all. It's the Merlin 1 engine and then a slight variation for the vacuum engine because you need a slight.
Right.
But it's just tiny tweaks, and it's a solid business practice. So that was, now I'm totally out of order because I did that out of order. But
Sorry.
No, not your fault. And one of the correction, it's June, not July. My bad. I keep thinking we're taking a vacation, and I'll talk about it in After Dark.
Oh, yeah.
The X-37B is the 37, right?
The space shuttle variant, or that isn't a space shuttle that belongs to the military, that doesn't actually exist.
Oh, wait, hang on, check this out.
Didn't actually go anywhere.
Look at-
Definitely wasn't in the air for a year.
It landed after
And
over
it totally
a year.
didn't land. I love how they use thermal imaging here.
Well, there's two. There's the you've got optical. Like,
no, I know, but there was this, and I was like, see, it's like it still doesn't exist, even though it landed.
USKO calls it a midget shuttle. It's also unmanned, right?
Yeah.
So it was up in space for well over a year, 468 days. It's a secret mission, and I love looking at that because you can see the heat, right?
Yeah,
You saw the
that's
similar
true.
things on the actual manned space shuttle, but that's what it looks like without the thermal imaging. And yeah, it's just a teeny tiny little completely automated space shuttle. Now imagine a slightly larger version of that. It's not exactly true, but would be Dream Chaser.
Yeah, I suppose.
Yeah?
Yeah, I can see the similarities there.
Absolutely. So space shuttle technology is not dead. It's just not man-rated anymore.
Ooh, ouch. Ouch, that's just mean.
The funny thing is, this was a secret mission that you weren't supposed to be able to track, which, of course, if you go to like n2yo.com, within 48 hours they had full tracking of the vehicle. But yeah, it's now landed, and so we'll see where they go from there. Oh, this was fun. So Planetary Resources, we did the official webcast for those guys. They're the guys who are going out and mining asteroids. Awesome. Right? Awesome stuff. Just this huge swell of people saying, how can I help? So Peter Diamandis, a Diamandis Corporation.
It is a Diamandis presentation, or what is it?
Corporation, whatever.
Something.
Production, Diamandis Production, there you go. On a blog, and you know what, here, I'm just going to roll it, and you can check out the URL at the bottom, which is to their blog. I think this is really cool. Check this out.
Hi, this is Peter Diamandis with Planetary Resources. My partner Eric Anderson and I are thrilled to have you involved and here at this blog. So you're here because we offered the opportunity for you to get involved. We are building the world's most sophisticated, high-tech, low Earth orbit imaging spacecraft. These are spacecraft that we're going to use at Planetary Resources to identify near Earth approaching asteroids, to actually find out which of these are coming close to the Earth and which of these have resources of benefit to humanity. But we've had so many people writing us and saying, hey, can we be involved in finding those asteroids or pointing the spacecraft at celestial bodies or at the Earth, or how can we participate? That it got us thinking. If you really do want to be involved, we would be thrilled to create a Kickstarter campaign that would allow you to participate, to decide perhaps by voting where to point the spacecraft, or have the chance to control the spacecraft for a whole day, or just for a few images, or other ways to be involved. So down below in this blog, we've created the opportunity for you to enter your ideas. Please give us your Kickstarter levels of how you want to be involved, or you can simply vote up and vote down other people's ideas and express your thoughts and interest in that fashion. So it's a really cool application. Please tell us How do you want to play? If you want to play, hey, we're open to creating this Kickstarter campaign to give you access to a portion of one of our spacecraft or a whole spacecraft of your own if there's enough people of interest. Either way, we're moving forward. If you don't want to do this, no problem. We will build these spacecraft for planetary resources uses, and we're planning a launch within the next 21 to 24 months. Very excited about that. Thank you for your best wishes. Thank you for your excitement in being involved in this extraordinary adventure of opening up the cosmos.
I thought that was really cool.
Very
So it's a
cool,
way,
right?
yeah. It's basically they say they want to do a Kickstarter campaign, but they're not entirely sure what the levels should be. So help them find the levels. So that URL that was at the bottom of your screen, go there. We'll put it in the show notes as well. And yeah, I know I personally want to be involved in planetary resources somehow. I don't think I could work there full time, but something. More than anything else, I almost want to invest in it, right? Where it makes sense to me, right?
Right.
So that's.
I want a T-shirt.
A YouTuber says they'd be willing to give me control for a day. And as USKO says, I love these guys. They're really awesome. I agree, right? We know a lot of these people personally, and they're good. They're good people. So that's really exciting. So our last news story before we go into break. How many space shuttles are there?
1, 2.
So most space geeks will tell you there are 6.
It's hard because they all look alike.
It's hard. They all look alike. Science. Most space geeks will tell you there are 6. There's Columbia,
Yes.
Challenger,
Yes.
Discovery, Atlantis, Endeavour, and then so that's what most non-space geeks will give you. Well, most non-space geeks can't even get that far.
Right.
The 6th one is Enterprise,
Enterprise.
and the 7th one.
The what one?
The 7th
The
one.
what one?
Is
the model that came
Pathfinder.
from KSC.
Exactly. Well, no, this is Pathfinder. This
Is
is
that the- what
this
one
is
came
not this is not the one you can walk through.
So now
That's-
this is 8.
well, no, that's not actually a space shuttle. That was just a model thing. This is Pathfinder. This was a wooden mock-up of the space shuttle, and Downey Space Museum, whatever it's called, has had this in storage for a while, and they're going to be bringing it out. And so you'll be able to they're going to put it under tents. I'm excited because Downey's like right next to us.
Oh, I see.
So California gets 2 space shuttles. Now, the space shuttle is adventure or explore.
Southern California.
Right. Well, yeah, exactly. So you were thinking of space shuttle. It's like adventure, explore, something like that. The Kennedy Space Center had this huge thing in the middle, and that's going to Texas.
Right.
That wasn't a test article for anything. That was just a thing that they made. It was a prop.
So
this was an actual test article. This was a wooden. It could never fly ever. It's made out of wooden plastic. It was just hoisted up and made sure that they could actually fit the shuttle through different areas.
Right.
That you could flow it, just make sure that it fits. Quite literally fits into different areas. And so that's going to be if you're in the Southern California kind of area. That's going to be
Southeastern suburbs of LA.
something like that. Downey's going to be bringing it out, sticking it underneath a bunch of tents, and you'll be able to actually see this. And I think that's going to be pretty awesome because California is also getting space shuttle Endeavour.
The one that landed here.
The one that landed here in
the
the
core.
movie, The Core. That's a great. All right.
Science is real.
Science is real. On that note, let's take a quick break. And when we come back, the news that I think is the big one, the main topic for the show is China and the huge strides that they have been making in such a short amount of time. So stay with us. We'll be right back.
Look into her face, determination in her eyes. She won't give up or quit or fall for little fashion lies. Filled with awesome expectation. This girl's a fascination. And nothing in her way will keep her from her destination. 'Cause she's fire walking. She's fire walking. When it's hot, she keeps on moving. Through the heat, keeps on improving. Yeah, she's fire walking. She's fire walking to be free.
Ten, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Ignition. Lifting off.
B 跟踪正常，遥测信号正常。双层光学雷达跟踪正常。
120 seconds, the escape tower will
跟踪正常。
drop off. That means they will be on their own. Well, it's a nice liftoff. This is the outside view mounted on the launch vehicle.
This is an infrared image, and this is the visible light.
This is an optical image of the launch vehicle carrying Shenzhou 9.
The chat room brought up a very interesting point. They haven't heard the word nominal yet.
I don't know. Is that in the Chinese language at all?
I don't know.
Right?
So
what you were watching was Shenzhou 9. I know I'm pronouncing this wrong. In a lot of great Spacevidcasters, they've even given me pronunciation guides, and then I sit there and I read them, and I still can't do it for some reason. So forgive me for pronouncing it wrong, but that was Shenzhou 9, which launched to China's first space station, Tiangong-1, which again, I know I'm pronouncing wrong. And not only was this a manned and womaned vehicle. How do you word that? I don't know how to word that.
There doesn't need to be a differentiation.
All right, so there were humans on board. That was China's first female taikonaut to go into space. So China has gone from kind of a pre-Mercury space program to, at this point, well, I mean, now they've docked, right? Here, check this out.
Right.
Check this out.
Many possible things can go wrong. One would be a malfunction of one of the instruments that monitors your position or angle. Another possibility is a malfunction of a propulsion system. In the Gemini program, there was one case in which an attitude control thruster was turned on and would not turn off. And it was a very dangerous, a very dangerous situation. But they were able to disable the thruster and correct the situation.
And this is the Shenzhou 9 camera taking image of Tiangong-1. And now it's the other way around. The Tiangong-1 camera taking of Shenzhou 9 spacecraft. We can see from the two camera images that they're getting very close now.
Yes.
As Mr. Jiang said, there is some dangerous happening in the docking process, but the big difference from the last mission, we have 3 astronauts on board. If any unexpected thing happens, they can take over the control of the docking.
The astronauts can practice override and do it manually if anything wrong with the automatic procedure.
That's the beauty of having 2 alternative methods of docking.
Well, it seems they're about to dock.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Well, they have already docked. Tiangong-1 and Shenzhou 9, they have docked. Obviously, the astronauts should have felt the bump.
I hope so, because to me, it looked like they went BAM! Right? Yeah, right? The chat room's even like that speed.
Yeah.
But here's the interesting thing, right? So even in our own chat room, filled with space geeks, one of our users, I didn't even know they had their own space station. When did that happen, right? And this has been around for a little while now. Tiangong-1, whatever. And they've done unmanned dockings with it already. Right. And as someone else mentioned, and I apologize, it's above the fold, so I don't remember who said it. They've gone from pre-Mercury to Skylab in one jump. And with the exception of the idea that Apollo was in between, and they're not quite at an Apollo level yet,
right.
I would agree, right? They're at the point where now they've got humans on board their space station.
Their own space station.
They've got
their own space station.
Well, that's partly the U.S.'s fault, because we wouldn't let them join the International Space Station. So China was like, okay, well, we'll build our own.
We'll do our own then.
And they did, right? They've got their own space station. They've got it flying above. So that's the main topic for the show is, what do you think the future of China is going to be? Are they going to be able to leapfrog the U.S. space program at this point? And we'll talk about this in our comments later on, but a lot of people think that I'm down on government space programs, and I'm certainly not. I'm down on programs that make no forward progress.
Right.
You could be
Any program.
any program, private program, government program, whatever. Here's a government program, a Chinese space program, who's making great forward momentum.
Right.
Now, they haven't achieved anything that hasn't already been done, but neither has any private space company. But what they are doing is taking those baby steps necessary to get to the point to achieving things that haven't been done. And you have to kind of walk before you can run.
Right.
And I think they're moving quickly. I think they're moving very quickly. And I had heard talk of China going to the moon sometime in the 2020s. And prior to this mission, I would dismiss that as they're not even remotely close to ready. They don't have the technology. They don't even know how to do manned dockings yet. I mean, they're not ready.
See, and people in the chat room are saying that China is running before they can walk, and I think that's really interesting.
So what do you think? Do you think they're running before they can walk, or do you think they're walking before they can run?
No, I think sadly, I agree with you, which is going to make this really boring. But
and we're done. Goodbye.
Right. No, you're right. Next topic. No, I think you have to launch a rocket, right?
Yeah, they did that.
Okay, and then you gotta get somebody on the rocket, bring them home, and then.
See, I think the difference is I don't think a lot of people have been paying attention to China over the last few years.
Right.
So they've worked out their rockets.
Well, they're pretty quiet about it.
They are. I mean,
Right.
they're really Russian designs, but they work, right? Because they're Russian designs. They've built the space station and launched it. They've done unmanned dockings and tested the space station. Now they've done their first manned docking with the space station. I don't feel like they're running really. I mean,
I think running before you can walk is saying, like, you know what, we've never done this before, but we're going to send people to moon or Mars. Like,
right. They're figuring.
go.
I feel like they're figuring these things out step by step.
Yeah,
and they're just
I think
doing
they're making logical steps. I don't think that they're jumping ahead of themselves. I don't think I think it makes a lot of sense.
USKO says something interesting, which is I'm not impressed. It's easy to do stuff that's been done 50 years ago. It's
sort of right.
Yeah. Yes, but I feel like they have to start over from scratch almost. They certainly can. There's a learned base of information that they have access to.
That's kind of like anything, right? You don't turn to a 5-year-old child and say, well, this has been done before, so you should be able to do it too. Well, that child
that's a really great
done
analogy.
It before.
That's a great analogy.
So, I mean, even though the 5-year-old has all of the information laid out in front of them, that doesn't mean that they can accomplish it. They still have to go through the process of learning it for themselves.
But there is a grain of truth to what USKO said in
absolutely.
In that nothing that they haven't done anything that hasn't been done before.
Right.
But I feel like they're setting themselves up to do things. So the next thing they could do is go to the moon. Been done before, but this is where things get interesting. Let's say they do go to the moon in 2020s, right? What if they set themselves up to stay on the moon?
Right.
An actual, a lunar colony? Or just a
Habitat.
lunar base. We'll call it a lunar hab.
Sure.
Lunar base. I'm
Right.
not sure it'd be truly a colony at that stage. But you would have now this kind of fundamental area on the moon. They can go from Earth to the moon. Well, what if they start mining some of the water? Would you mine water?
Yeah, I guess.
I don't know.
It's not hanging out on the surface. You
exactly.
gotta
So
dig for it a little
what if they
bit.
started grabbing the water from the moon, turning it into fuel, and sending that up to lunar floating stations and using that as a launching platform to Mars? They can start doing some really cool things, but as you mentioned, they don't have that rich history that NASA has, and frankly, the people at NASA that did that rich history are gone. NASA's had a chance to build 2 more rockets capable of going to the moon, Constellation being the first one, Ares 5, that was canceled. SLS, the Space Launch System, which is currently on the books, there's a high probability that will get canceled. So here's China actually doing things. And I'm not anti-NASA, let's get that straight. I'm anti-no forward progress.
Right.
So there you go.
Yeah, no.
Actually, Nick Forever also asks a question. So a lot of people kind of view China as amateurs still, right? They haven't quite grown up to NASA's level. But if China does go to the moon, will they be a big kid on the block or still an amateur? And if they do that, will they have then surpassed NASA?
Can I just say something really quickly?
Yeah, absolutely.
I like how everything gets measured up against NASA. And to a certain extent...
They put humans on the moon!
To a certain extent, it should. But what everyone's measuring, the measuring stick stops in 1973, right?
Except 2, okay?
But whatever. Everyone keeps comparing everyone else to what they just deem NASA. You're talking old school NASA, original NASA, the previous NASA, not the NASA that it is right now. We need to start. Even NASA should get compared to NASA, really.
Oh, another really good point. You are on fire.
Thank you for
Look at
acting
that.
so surprised. But in those terms, right?
You're welcome. I didn't know you were that smart. That's amazing.
That's a post-show conversation. So, now I'm completely derailed.
Black Project says in the chat room, there's not enough money being put into NASA to do what they're being told to do, and I completely disagree. The problem with NASA isn't actually NASA. The problem with NASA is the Congress and senators who are supposed to give NASA a mission.
Who's telling NASA how to do their job, not just what job to do.
Actually, what they're not doing is saying what you should do. We have astronauts going into space. There's no clear defined mission. In the 70s, it was you're going to the moon, in the 60s, I'm sorry, you're going to the moon in a decade, you're going to safely put a human on the moon and return them.
That's pretty definitive,
That's,
guys.
yeah, it's definitive and this long, right? This is what you're doing.
That's a tweetable mission.
Yes, again, look at you. NASA's mission should be tweetable. It should be 140 characters or less. You should be able to tweet NASA's mission, and it should be something like, put humans on Mars, safely return to Earth, hashtag NASA rocks. That should be what their mission is, and it should allow them, that's what NASA needs to be. That, in my opinion, is what's holding them back. And actually, USKO is also saying, no, I'm wrong, which is off.
Big
That
surprise
happens
there.
often.
Okay.
He's saying, no, the problem is the mismatch between what they're being told to do and the money they're getting. They're being told to build rockets with no clear destination. How do you build a rocket where you don't know where it's supposed to go?
And they're being told how to make them as well. You must use these parts. You must use these people. You must use this.
As Nick Forever said, it's a jobs program at this point, right?
Right.
They're trying to save jobs of,
Right,
we'll
and again,
use
to
solid
not
fuels.
beat the dead horse, I just want to say that when somebody says, oh, well, China isn't as cool as NASA is. No, China isn't as cool as NASA used to be, but they quickly are coming up to that end point, right? And I think they're going to surpass that, and I think they're going to surpass it
Think of
quickly.
how-
And it's not just, their program isn't just going to die like ours did.
Ours didn't die. Think of how it
know what I'm
changed. It
saying?
morphed into the shuttle program.
Okay, but-
and then got stuck in low Earth orbit.
Okay.
Think of how inspiring China will be if they do put taikonauts on the moon.
Mm-hmm.
Think of how inspiring it will be if they put them and they stay on the moon. And then they start sending more and more taikonauts to the moon.
Awesome.
That's an inspirational thing.
I think
Now,
it's huge.
There could be another Cold War. I don't want to call it Cold War. We'll call it space race.
Right.
Because of that, I don't know if that will actually happen because we've done this, and I'm not sure how much we care. I care deeply. I know that people who watch Spacevidcast care deeply, but I don't know how much the average American cares. Then there's, and it's not just American, right? ESA, the European Space Agency, they could choose to put humans on the moon. They could make the choice too.
Yeah.
They choose not to. JAXA could choose to put humans on the moon. It doesn't have to be NASA. It could be ESA. ESA doesn't do it. JAXA doesn't do it. NASA doesn't do it.
ISRO.
Yeah, but anyhow, it doesn't have to be the moon. Why the moon? The moon is one of those destinations that's awe-inspiring.
Right, but that's a whole nother conversation.
But you know what? It could be Mars too. So what we
Right.
want to know is what you think. We love your comments. First off, we know I'm crazy, so you don't need to call me crazy. That's just a given. But do you agree with anything that's been said right now? What is China's role in this next generation of space going to be? We've got SpaceX, orbital systems, massive space systems, Armadillo Aerospace, and China really making huge inroads into kind of next generation space flight. So what's China's role in all of this going to be? And will our inspiration for space travel come from China and not NASA? Ooh, interesting. So, would love to hear your comments. Leave them on Twitter, leave them on YouTube, you leave them on Facebook, whatever you want to do. And speaking of comments,
Although, if you tweet them, if you can make your comment in a tweet, I love that idea, right?
they do actually. We've got some tweets.
Oh
coming.
no, I know we do. Not that what you have to say if it's long-winded, if that it's not important. That's not that. But I just love that idea.
We're looking
that
at
we very
USKO.
much so said, NASA's mission should be tweetable. So I think your response should also be tweetable.
I love that. NASA's mission should be tweetable. We're going to take a quick break, and speaking of those comments, we're going to look at comments from our last show that you guys had and talk about those. So stay with us. We'll be right back. All right, so some comments from our last show. This comes from Twitter. Orbital_Joe says, Shenzhou 9 and the landing of the second X-37B, it's exciting stuff, but is space becoming too militarized? I say yes. I say it has always been militarized, and you can just see it now, right? As an example,
I just love it. And you can see it now.
a little bit as an example, the Hubble Space Telescope, NASA launched to much fanfare and blah, a billion-dollar project, and NRO had 2 of them. Not Hubble Space Telescopes, but 2 of those mirrors, which are essentially the really expensive part of them, just kind of hanging out, and they're like, you can have one. Now, that's not a working spacecraft. You still need all the... But here's the thing to consider. Something just as powerful as the Hubble Space Telescope, but it probably wasn't pointed at space. Yeah, so something to consider.
Star Wars what?
Something. Oh yeah, speaking of it, this is my Jedi shirt. You can't see it. So it looks like a thing, but then until you do. All right. Okay. So I don't think it's personally, I don't think it's any different than before. I think you can just see a little bit more of it now because we're able to track the X-37B, for example. And I'm sure there's still a lot of it that we don't get to see that's even cooler. Look over here, X-37B, while they do something over here. Here's where I'm getting yelled at. So NASA doesn't show passion. Was he watching in 1997 when Pathfinder landed on Mars? Do a search. They seem excited. Always a few anti-government statements by Mr. Higginbotham. And then he goes on to talk about SpaceX and some misinformation about their funding, which we'll talk about maybe some future show. It is worth pointing out, as I have said in past shows, with the first 4 years of Spacevidcast, I did not work in the aerospace industry. This last year, however, I was hired by SpaceX. This show is independent from SpaceX. The comments, just like it said at the beginning of the show, the views and comments expressed here have nothing to do with SpaceX. They don't fund us. They don't advertise with us.
Because, dude, if they funded us, we'd have a studio, right?
Wouldn't be using webcams. Yeah, so 2 separate entities completely, and what we say here is not the stance of SpaceX at all. So it is I need to point that out.
Not to mention, again, also, that if you go back over the years, it's not like he's changed his tune.
That was what I was going to say. The first 4 years when I did not work at SpaceX, I said the exact same things I'm saying now. I haven't changed anything that I've been saying. So I still believe in privatized space. I think SpaceX is leader in that, but it isn't just SpaceX. And it's important to note, the thing is SpaceX right now is the best example for us to point to. Right. It won't always be that way. For example, when Virgin Galactic starts to fly for realsies, I'm going to start pointing to Virgin Galactic a lot more. That's just how this works.
When Maston starts bringing moon rocks home, then we can start pointing there too.
But the point was, did we exceed the excitement for Pathfinder? Absolutely. And in fact, you could see that in Pathfinder. And I think not only that, we're going to see it again. When MSL, which will be a Mars Science Laboratory, which will be a nail biter going down. The 7 minutes of terror. We need to air that video in the next show. That is going to be epic. You are going to see scientists crying, cheering, high-fiving. You're going to see every emotion condensed into 7 minutes, and it will be epic. So that will happen. And it's not to say that all of NASA are a bunch of lifeless drones. It is to say that there's a problem in that NASA TV is aired 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and you can't keep inspiring for that long. And that's a much longer conversation. The problem isn't NASA. The problem is NASA TV and the way they kind of do their outreach. It's done in a very boring way, with exceptions.
Right. Well, and it's unfortunate, right? Because NASA TV, the way that it was developed, its entire purpose isn't to inspire, and yet a lot of us space geeks look to NASA and NASA TV to inspire us. So the problem is we don't have anywhere, well, it's not that we don't have anywhere else to look. There's other places to look, but NASA TV and NASA in general is so accessible that we go there and we are expecting one thing and receiving something else, and it's not necessarily their fault. It's almost our fault.
You know what's
really?
Kind of. You know what's interesting is
it's kind of like going to your local state fair and expecting it to be Disney World.
But Nick Forever...
It ain't gonna be.
Nick Forever brings up an interesting point, which is point me to a government program agency that's fun. But you know what? There was an excitement in the Apollo era.
Yeah.
Right? Maybe not 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, but there was this general, like Walter Cronkite, like crying on air.
Yeah, that's huge.
It was a different aura back then, but their mission was tweetable then, and they were doing something awesome. if we can get NASA to do something awesome again, then I think we're going to get back to that level of excitement, NASA TV or not. I mean, NASA TV will be unable to contain this excitement because there will be so much of it you can't strip it out.
Right.
And NASA says, challenge accepted. So, and USKO says Walter wasn't working for NASA TV. That's correct. But why does NASA TV have to entertain? This is a much longer conversation.
Right.
But generally speaking, when you watch SpaceX clips on YouTube, you're excited. When you watch NASA clips on YouTube, you're bored out of your mind. And that's just even YouTube. That's not even NASA TV. Right? So that's me personally. Some people don't want to be excited. They just want the raw information. Good for them. But I feel like there's no reason you can't entertain and educate at the same time. That's actually a very Disney thing.
Not NASA's job. So
yeah, but it kind of should be, I think. But all right, anyhow, we've beaten that dead horse.
Yeah.
Via Twitter, Riglo, I hope I pronounced that right, said, watching your last few vidcasts, what government programs do you like? Are there any? And I guess this comes back to, I must have been really harsh on government programs these
You kind of are.
Am I really? I don't mean to be. I mean to be harsh to any program that doesn't move forward. And I want to be very clear on that. And hopefully you guys understand that. And
the other thing is that they only get you for like 1 hour a week, right?
You get me
I get
all
you
the time.
24/7. So you and I can rehash this stuff.
So government programs that I like, I'm going to pause for a moment. One story we skipped in the news section because we kind of ran out of time was Poland joining the European Space Agency this year. Actually, I think I have a banner for it even.
Awesome.
I don't. So go to our wiki. You can look up the information on Poland joining ESA. And what's interesting is it wasn't like a slam dunk type thing, right? Because Poland has to decide that they want to join ESA, and the Ministry of Finance was like, no. And then so some people kind of started doing these campaigns. Well, because it's expensive, right?
Yes.
What's the point of spaceflight? It's just a giant money suck, right? Yeah. People who just look at numbers all day long, it's hard to see how it's going to. I'm
a quarter pole, so I'm with you on that one, guys.
So it's interesting to go read the story. Wiki.spacevidcast.com. We'll put it in the show notes. But it sounds like this year Poland will be joining ESA. But back to the original point of which space programs do I like from government agencies? Any space program making forward momentum. So I am not against NASA. In fact, MSL is probably the most exciting Martian mission I've ever been alive for. Viking, pretty exciting, but MSL, man, I think Skycrane is there not because it needed to be, but because they're like, okay, seriously, people will pay attention if we put in Skycrane. They're gonna be like, what? So yeah, MSL.
It's insanity.
I'm excited for NASA's Planetary Sciences program. I'm unexcited about the funding level they're getting, but I am excited about the program. I'm excited for private space flight in the world. I'm also excited for China.
Right. I mean, let's just say, but kind of along those lines, to sort of summarize, ESA's doing a great job. They're doing some interesting things.
They are.
NASA's doing some interesting things. China's doing some interesting things. JAXA's doing some interesting things. ISRO, they're doing some interesting. There's a lot of people. Russia's also still doing some interesting things. It's not like they're, he's not down on everything. He really isn't.
But where's our Apollo? I guess that's my point. What space agency is working on the next generation, Apollo 2.0, which is a terrible thing. You shouldn't base it on Apollo. You should do your own thing. Someone should be going to Mars. Someone should say, look, we're putting humans on Mars. This is happening for realsies. And I think that may be China. And I'm very excited to see what China will do. What disappoints me in China is how secretive they are.
Right.
I wish they were a little bit more like NASA in that regard, in like, here's what we're doing. That's a cultural thing. I don't foresee that changing, but China is doing some amazing things.
And again, to not hate broken record, but if you go back through all of the episodes where any episode where Ben is supposedly down on government, it changes which one he's kind of poo-pooing at the time, right? I mean, there have been times where we've said the ESA's got their head up their butts, and there's been times where we were like, JAXA, what are you doing? And there's other times in China we're like, psh, what are they even thinking, right? There's plenty of times where we've poo-pooed every government agency, and then there's also plenty of times where we've celebrated all these different government agencies and the things that they're doing, and non-government agencies and the things that they're doing.
USKO brought up an interesting point in the chat room, and something I fear and hope isn't true, but maybe, which is China is doing Apollo, exactly Apollo, and nothing else.
Kind of, except they now have women. So they're at least one step ahead of that.
Maybe, but he could be right. I mean, it could be that
He
China's
could be
going to
right,
go
and
put
time
their
will
flag on the
tell.
moon and say, look, we are a space nation now too, and then go into low Earth orbit for 40 years.
And time will tell. But right now, it's still really, it's in that exciting, you know, it's a new relationship energy, right? I mean, it's something you can get excited about. It's new and different. Don't give me that look of not even making eye contact. But it is. It's still in that new exciting phase of things. And why can't I still be excited and enjoy that phase?
NASA, you can, you should.
Thank you.
And we do. NASA does not have enough money, but it also does not have something else, a goal. In 1969, it was the moon. Where is NASA going now? NASA needs a real goal, like Mars, by 2023. A goal and a deadline. And that,
By Davis Green 2020.
Oh yeah, from Davis Green 2020. And Davis Green brought up something that I forgot to mention. Not just a goal, but a goal that is within a decade. If we do it more, at least in the US, more than a decade means it will probably not be achieved.
Well, that's because the presidency changes hands too often.
That's exactly why. No, that's precisely why. We've got an 8-year cycle. Well, once you're
You and I were at the same talk
Once
with
you're-
Bob Zubrin the other night.
But once you're 8 years into it, if you've actually made your milestones, like hopefully you have, you're close enough where canceling the program at that point would be just stupid. Hopefully. So, and it really was, Apollo really was about an 8-year program, essentially. So you need to do it in a decade or less. All of this 2-decade, 3-decade, we're going to make it there by the year 2150. We're going to wait for warp drive. Not going to happen. You need to, 10 years or less, set a goal, set a destination, and get out of the way. Tweetable, time, and place and reason. All right, let's close the show off with these comments.
But this person hasn't gotten to this part of the show yet.
I know. So
all right, put it in.
Just so you guys know what we work with, here we go. So the show's too short. Please make these episodes longer. More detail would be great. Trying to parse the many space articles takes hours, and really appreciate you guys doing it for us. That's Arterin 121.
181.
181. I don't know why I said 121.
It's okay. I still like it.
And we appreciate the comment. We have to parse the shows too, and so it takes a little bit of time. But the reason the shows are not longer is because on that exact same video, the comment says, "This is ridiculously long. Shorten them down or I won't watch any longer. 10 minutes max per subject." Which that's from D. Harris Bay, which is funny because when you actually watch the show, you'll notice that each subject is substantially less than 10 minutes. But hey, whatever.
But the overall,
and my favorite part is I love how people when they want to go and say that our episodes are too long, they threaten us by saying we're not going to watch anymore. Why is that a threat?
I don't know. I don't watch you.
Exactly.
Just a thought. But that kind of was a couple weeks ago. It was sort of like, let Carrie Ann speak, let Carrie Ann speak. Why do we let that woman talk at all? On the exact same video. So I'm pretty sure there's some sort of weird conspiracy. Next thing you'll know, we'll get like, I love when you guys wear blue shirts. It really brings out your eyes. Then
don't wear blue shirts.
Exactly. So we heart you no matter what. We do the best we can with the tools that we are given, and some people are just going to hate on it, and some people are going to love it.
Well, hopefully you love space. So our goal is to get you excited and passionate about space again. That's why we're here, and we do that by giving you the latest of what's happening in space, continuing the conversation with you guys, and then making sure that you guys have some place to go.
Can I also note really quickly that when you do post your questions and comments and concerns and complaints on Twitter, YouTube, Facebook, you can even email us if you like. We do try to respond in a timely manner, not just on the show, although we do save some things for the show because we want to discuss them with the entire group. But we do try to respond, in YouTube, in Facebook, via email, et cetera, et cetera.
There was one other, did you ever email that gentleman back?
I have not yet.
Okay, so we'll answer this really quickly on the show. We got an email from someone asking, last season, it was so much better. You had a director behind you, the show, the set was much larger, you had bigger lights. What happened?
It was like, you guys are so cool, why do you suck now?
Kind of. What happened was...
But in the best way.
We moved from Minnesota to the Los Angeles area so that I could take up a new job. And with that, I had, Adam didn't move with us. Our
studio didn't move with us.
Studio didn't move, so we're quite literally in our living room because we felt it was still important to bring the show to you as best we could. So we're doing what we can with the resources we have, and I know it's not as good, but we're trying, and we appreciate your patience as we slowly build things back up
We're
to where they
working
were
on it.
back in the Minneapolis times. And Adam was an incredible director, and we miss him dearly because it was so much better when he was on the show. But it is what it is. And I do want to say, I'm sorry, I know I should be closing the show, but
Should be.
YouTuber78 NASA has been doing a freakishly awesome job on the Spacevidcast wiki, helping to build the show prior to the show, kind of allocate all of the links and topics that we want to talk about beforehand into one universal place.
And you can do that too. It doesn't have to be only one person doing that. If I
Absolutely.
find something interesting, I pop it in the wiki. Ben finds something interesting. Whoa, Jeffrey finds something interesting. Uncle BS, USKO. You guys can all just throw stuff into the wiki. And then it gives us a chance to sort of go through the hot topics, if you will, and pick and choose.
Hot topic.
Okay. Great. So that's the end of this show.
Absolutely, but we do like it as much as we love to jest. We do. The show is based on your comments, so please make sure to leave your comments on YouTube. As we've said before, YouTube at Spacevidcast on Twitter, Facebook.com/SpaceVidcast. You can email us, Benjamin and Carrie Ann at SpaceVidcast.com, or leave them on our website at SpaceVidcast.com, which also links back to Facebook. And no one's actually left a Facebook comment yet. I'd love to see how that actually integrates. I'd like to see all of that go on our own website. And After Dark is up next, where we're going to talk about girls in science.
We actually have a topic for After Dark.
We have a topic for After Dark. If you're a Spacevidcast Epic subscriber, you can watch that. Log into your Spacevidcast Epic account. If not, Spacevidcast Epic helps us produce this show, and the more Epic subscribers we get, the more gear we can buy, and the quicker we can get this back to the levels they were at last year. So go to spacevidcast.com/epic. It starts at $10 per month, and you get gigs and gigs and gigs of additional awesome content, not just of us rambling and talking, but also of great speakers. Like, for example, yesterday we got Dr. Robert Zubrin. It's Bob Zubrin?
Bob. I call him
Bob. And he did, the whole thing about going to Mars. Mars Direct and Mars Semi-Direct. And Spacevidcast Epic subscribers will get the whole video when it's done being produced. Everyone else will get a much, much, much shorter version of that same thing, missing the entire Q&A session. And as always, the Q&A session is the fun part.
And next week, we're going to be filming Bill Nye at the LA Space Salon.
Ooh.
I know.
I don't know if that was public information yet, so now it is.
It is now.
Yeah. On that note, thank you guys so much for watching. We'll see you next week. ...
A review by Axman13. Date, February 3rd, 2010. Score, 1. I really don't want to say this, but I have to now. This game is so essy! I mean, all you do is hit the space bar. That's it! How is this an RPG anyway? You can't control anything but what it says on the screen! What if I didn't want to buy the potion? What about quests? All you can upgrade is strength? There is no way you can lose to the boss at the end! This game is crap! It's not even an RPG at all! I mean, look at it! In what way is this supposed to be an RPG if you can do quests and stuff? All you do is press one button the entire time! Explain to me. Explain to me! The Athor commence al total lies! Is it supposed to be stick dudes? I don't even know how this damn game got the daily third prize, or a rating of 4.26! People think this review is worthless. Go ahead! I don't care! I'm just trying to make a point here! Blam this piece of crap! P.S. The only reason I'm giving this a 1 is because the voices were pretty good. But that's it!